up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Pick Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook. Born in Vegas, Will Brinson here, along with Larry Hartstein, Mike McClure, and RJ White for a very special post-Christmas edition as we head into Week 17. We got a ton of games to cover. This is, I believe, a YouTube-only exclusive since Boxing Day on Thursday. They supplants us. I'm here at the palatial Brinson estate. Fun fact, leaving tomorrow from High Point, North Carolina to drive to Jacksonville, Florida. We'll be going to an NFL game. Somehow, Mason Rudolph and against Mac Jones is not the worst matchup on the slate, but that's Week 17 for you. We do have plenty of good games. Let's dive right in. Merry Christmas to all of you. Happy holidays, of course, everyone watching and all of you guys. We got Seahawks at Bears on Thursday night. Over Seahawks are -4 on the road. Huge game for Seattle, chasing the Rams, of course, in the division. The Bears on a 9-game losing streak. And Larry, total here of 42.5. Really, if you're Chicago, you're just hoping for a high draft pick or maybe to get some more picks in the trade at this point, and Caleb Williams not getting injured.
Yeah, and I've got 3 props on the game that are all up at SportsLine, but one of them is JSN. 74 or more receiving yards. Jackson Smith-Njigba in 7 straight games. He's averaging over 9 targets in that span. And the Bears pass defense, it was good at the beginning of the season. Over the last several weeks, since Week 10, they are bottom 3 in every passing defense metric. I mean, this defense has just totally collapsed. And JSN appears to be the favorite receiver over DK Metcalf, over Tyler Lockett. And we know the Seahawks continue to throw the ball at a very high rate. Number 4 in passing rate over expected. No Kenneth Walker tonight. So I love JSN to just keep doing what he's doing. And then on the other side, you have the rookie linebacker. This is one of the things that changed with Seattle. When their run defense got better, it was Ernest Jones, and then they made this rookie Tyrese Knight a starter. Over 6.5 tackles and assists. He has gone over this in 5 of his 6 starts, twice getting double digits, and he's excellent in coverage. So even though the Bears are going to be throwing a lot of short passes to DJ Moore, if you watch some of the highlights, he can cover wideouts, he can cover running backs out of the backfield. Love him over 6.5.
I'm on the first half line here with the Seahawks, and the reason why is I think, as you mentioned, Seattle not afraid to throw the ball. No Kenneth Walker, so you a little more varied rushing attack with Zach Charbonnet back there. The Bears' defense has been terrible since they fired Matt Eberflus. The same thing happened to them that happened to the Jets. You fire Robert Saleh, defense goes off a cliff. Defensive head coach Matt Eberflus' departure, warranted as it may, hurt the Bears' defense. And then the thing with Chicago is, they're like the same team every week. They stink for a half of football, and then they're like, oh, we're losing. I guess we'll let Caleb Williams try to do stuff, and he mounts a comeback, and they get involved with it. So I really like the Seahawks on the first half line here, -2.5, a little bit of juice depending on where you find it. Anything for you on this game, RJ, and feel free to follow, Mike.
Yeah, I like the Seahawks at 3.5. It's now 4 in some places, 4.5 in a lot of places too. It's starting to get up there to where I'm just a lean on the Seahawks. I like your look on the first half. Chicago's down multiple offensive linemen, including at left tackle, which I think is an issue against a strong Seattle defensive line that was playing well before the games against the Packers and Vikings, 2 teams with good offensive lines. Chicago's defense has allowed 30-plus in 4 of the last 5 and 400 yards in 4 of the last 5. I don't expect them to slow down the Seattle offense much, so I think this could get a little bit ugly. But once you get to 4, it's kind of like at the edge of where I think the value is. So like playing the Seahawks earlier in the week at -3.5, I did get down on some DeAndre Swift unders as well in the running game.
Yeah, I would lean to the Seattle side. Not going to play it at 4.5. Would look to play it in game, though, if there's a scenario where they don't score early or Chicago does. I would have some interest there. And just a slight over lean. I think we've seen a little bit too much of a correction here. This was as high as 45.5, down to 41.5 at one point, back to 42.5 here. Could get to an over here at a 23-20 kind of game. Or just a scenario where Seattle simply scores 30 again, because as the guys have mentioned here, Chicago 31st in the NFL since week 10 in terms of EPA per play defensively. But I do think Caleb in certain situations can push enough offensively. So for me, it would be kind of one of those ugly overs. And then my real interest here would be looking to grab Seattle at under a field goal live if it presents itself at any point during the game.
All right, we got a trio of games on Saturday as well, because the NFL must have every second of every day of our attention, which to be perfectly honest, I'm kind of fine with it. The Christmas games were well done. They were fun. Wednesday games ridiculous, but Netflix did a good job with that, particularly the quality of streaming. Surprising after the Jake Paul fight. Chargers at Patriots starts us off. Chargers are -4 in New England with another game and it totaled at 42.5. RJ, you like the dog in this spot.
Yeah, I think the Chargers offense got back on track last week, but their defense has been vulnerable in the second half of the season. New England games tend to have trended over with Drake May at quarterback. They're playing hard down the stretch as he develops into not just a franchise quarterback, but a leader for the team. It's really been kind of impressive to see him kind of come into his own over the last few weeks. And I think they're going to play. I mean, they obviously don't need a quarterback in the draft, so they're going to go out and try to beat the Chargers here and get a win for their coach. So I think it's going to be a tough competitive game for the Chargers going out east on a 1:00 game on a Saturday. It's not a great spot for them in this environment. So I like New England +4 as a best bet, and I would lean to the over in this game as well.
I actually like the under in this one, and that's probably because I like the Chargers. I think if you like the Patriots, the over makes a little bit more sense to Drake May pushing them. But I can see the Chargers just stranglehold situation here, running the ball a ton, physical. They know they have to win this game, and it's really more like a can't lose game. You go in there and just take care of business. So I am on the under. Larry, you have another prop here.
Yeah, well, look at the way the Patriots came out last week against Buffalo and just ran the ball right down the Bills' throats. I think they're going to try to do that to a Chargers team that, like RJ said, has not been as good defensively lately. In fact, 5 yards a carry allowed over the past 3 weeks. They are notorious for not playing stacked boxes. And Ramondre has gone for 60 or more rushing yards in 3 straight games, averaging 4.7 yards per carry in that span. Now he's got to stop fumbling. He had his 7th fumble last week. But Antonio Gibson, was terribly inefficient last week. So I think it's going to be another Ramondre game. And this number is way too low for me. Over 41.5. I'm seeing 42.5s in the market. Fine with that. All the way to 44.5.
Any leans for you, Mike?
Honestly, there's not. I would play the Chargers at 2.5, automatically play. I would play the Patriots kind of blindly at 4.5. If it gets to 4.5, you kind of lean pretty heavily that way. But I like my numbers almost dead on the total. I definitely can see the lean to the over because Drake May and company, they definitely have shown the ability to push. My only concern is, do they run the football too successfully and kill too much clock in this one? So I'm staying off of this game completely. Out of all the games on this slate, this is actually the one I had the least interest in betting.
Yeah, fair enough. And it's not a great game. Broncos and Bengals, huge matchup as the Bengals try to keep their slim playoff hopes alive. Bengals -3 here with a total of 49.5. And I'm going to lay the points with Cincinnati. Joe Burrow is going to show up in some kind of like super cushy hipster leisure wear outfit that's like $14,000 and looks like like a very comfortable garbage bag or like something weird. And that's just a sign that he's coming to kill and he's coming to play really well. And he's been awesome. I think with Pat Surtain, you obviously have concerns defensively, but Ja'Marr Chase, they can move him to the slot all they want. And if he's following Ja'Marr Chase or locking down Ja'Marr Chase, you have T. Higgins right there. So I like the Bengals to get it done and keep their playoff hopes alive, laying the 3 here. Mike, I know you're high on the Bengals, at least offensively as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not be high on them offensively, especially when you get the number under 27. It's a key number in the NFL when it's talking about team totals. I think there's a good shot that they ultimately find a 4th touchdown here, and it's because the team's just been terrible defensively. But when you look at the motivation spot, it obviously couldn't be higher, and I'm still bullish on what they've been able to do offensively. So it's really just a play on the number. The fact that it's 27 is a winning ticket and not 27.5. And then when you look defensively here, like I think that the Broncos, while they rate well in terms of EPA per play, I have some question marks about how they played defensively of late. And I do think this is a matchup where Cincy's going to put points up. So I'll play their team total here over 26.5.
RJ, anything for you here?
Yeah, I'll play devil's advocate a bit and make the case for the Broncos. Since starting 0-2, they've lost to the Chargers twice and at Baltimore and at Kansas City. And that's pretty tough. And all the wins since week 5 have been by more than 1 score. I think they're a pretty good team at this point. And Bo Nix had some concerns about him coming into last week after how he played the week prior. And he really shut those down. He played well against the Chargers, I thought. So then you look at Cincy. By contrast, their wins have been against Cleveland twice, Carolina, the Giants, Vegas, Tennessee, and Dallas. The best win there is beating Dallas. And that's maybe one solid opponent in the bunch. So I know that the Bengals have been gaining momentum, and we're thinking, oh man, it'd be great to have them in the playoffs because of how good that offense is. They still haven't really proven anything to me. And they're also dealing with more injuries in this matchup. There is also the potential of rain to make passing more difficult and then neutralize a bit of the advantage that Cincy might have, although they do have a good running back as well. So I don't know. This seems like a tight game. I would look to the under. I would look to Denver, especially if you're getting a +3.5 number. But that would be my leans.
Larry?
Yeah, not much on this game. I would lean to Cincy at -3 just because we've seen the Broncos have some real issues on the road and kind of a drastic home road split lately, but not going to play it at the current numbers.
All right, let's go to the evening game. Cardinals at the Rams. Rams laying 6.5 against a Cardinals team that, I mean, you talk about falling flat on your face. You're playing the Panthers. Just go to Carolina and win. James Conner's running the ball effectively, and the defense just can't slow down Bryce Young and company. Really debilitating loss. They're knocked out of the playoffs. Despite that, though, Mike, I mean, you can make the case this number's too high, right?
Yeah, I think so. Particularly if you can still find a 7 anywhere. I think that you could make the number 5.5, 6. I made it all the way down to 4.5 here. And I get that might sound a little surprising, and I know we're going to be banged up, potentially no James Conner in this spot, right? So it's the running game is beat up, but this is a comfortable matchup in my opinion. When I look at the NFL like EPA per play defensively, since week 10, the Rams are only reigning 25th, and they've had a few relatively easy matchups in there as well. When you talk about matchups, I know they played the Bills, of course, but they had a matchup with the New Orleans Saints in there. So I like this spot for Kyler Murray, kind of a desperation spot in a dome division matchup. There's a big difference between winning a game outright and covering a number like 7 in division like this. So for me, I think this is a great spot to back the Cardinals. Again, I think my number at 4.5 is probably a little aggressive, but I definitely think that you shouldn't be getting north of 6 here. So I like the Cardinals here as a best bet.
I really targeted this game for like best ball finals week in the preseason, thinking that it should be a shootout. I'm actually going to go the opposite way here, RJ, and take the under. I think you saw Carolina able to run the ball effectively against Arizona. I think the Rams will want to do just a lot of Kyron Williams, a lot of Blake Corum. Doesn't necessarily mean that the Cardinals can't cover that 7. I just think you're going to see the Rams chew up clock with long, extended, rush-heavy drives. And then if Arizona can't get going functionally on offense, missing James Conner, I think, could matter. Maybe they're a little bit slower. Kyler, we'll see if he's checked out or not. I got the under here. Anything for you?
If I was going to play this game, I would lean your way to the under. I don't want to lay this many points with how the Rams offense has played the last 2 weeks. I just can't back Arizona. I think Mike is right if this is, 3 weeks ago and Arizona's fighting for a playoff spot. I just hate these situations where they might be dead. Now they got to go on the road and play out this season. We don't know what to expect from them. And coming off an overtime loss to Carolina. So if I play anything, it'll be the under in a division rematch with Arizona coming off that overtime loss that ended their season. And this could be just a flat spot for them off of that. Well, we know the Rams are going to be gunning for that division. So I didn't want to play either side of this right here.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Larry will rejoin us. I'll try to stop coughing and maybe see if I can get out of this sunlight that is cascading all over my face as a result of being on the sun porch. Plus, we'll give you best bets for Jets and Bills, Raiders, Saints, much more coming up next on The Early Edge. Yeah, I picked the absolute worst time to be out on this porch. It's like the sun is like right above me. So sorry if I'm like squirming. And various arraignments of deer heads from the wall end up in the shot as well. Such is life in the South. All right, let's get to Jets and Bills. Huge game here, I suppose. Jets trying to, actually not really a huge game. Bills are kind of the Chiefs. Actually, it's not a huge game. The Bills have a chance to go out and flex after sort of struggling with the Patriots last week, but Jets are out of it, and the Bills are, jockeying for trying to hold on to that number 2 seed because Kansas City has now clinched the 1 seed. Even still, RJ, they're laying 8.5 here with a total of 46.5. You like your Buffalo Bills to circle the wagons?
Yeah, they still need a win after Baltimore beat Houston so they can rest players in Week 18. And they didn't have anybody miss practice on Wednesday, while the Jets had several key players on both sides listed as DNP, including Devontae Adams. I don't think he's in risk of missing this game, but that's something of note. Aaron Rodgers is going to play through injury in this game, which I think is a positive for us. I think going to the healthy Tyrod would be a more scary proposition for the Bills here. I think that New England game last week, even though everybody thinks the Jets are better than New England, that was a tougher spot for Buffalo coming off that Detroit game. 2 weeks of those high scoring games, and I just thought they were going to come out flat in that game. I expect a better start here, even if the conditions are rainy. They get out to a lead. I think the Jets again struggle to put up points, and Buffalo's able to win this one pretty easily. So now that the market is betting against me and pushing it down to that 8.5 range, great teaser leg if you want to do it. I just couldn't get there with the other teaser candidates, so I left it as Buffalo minus 8.5 as the best bet.
I'm on the Bills here too. Maybe a little bit of wish casting on my part. Again, best ball teams, Josh Allen need it because Lamar went off. But I think that there is. I mean, if you're Josh Allen, you're still favored. Like I know at various sports books he's like minus 250, likely going to win the MVP. But Lamar is making a case. And I mean, Lamar's won the MVP twice already, so it's not like voters are scared to give it to him. I think if the Ravens surged up and caught the Bills for that 2 seed and Lamar played out of his mind down the stretch, you could see that flip. I think Josh Allen really, really wants to win MVP. I think he believes he's been deserving of winning MVP in years past, didn't get there. And, we've seen the Bills snuff out frisky-ish divisional opponents before. I think we get a big-time Josh Allen game here. They should be able to run at will. I think he'll be cautious with the hand, and maybe they'll pull back a little if they get a big lead. But I think the Bills can really put one on the Jets here. I've got the Bills as a best bet as well. Larry, anything for you in this game?
Yeah, especially if Josh Allen doesn't play or have to play in Week 18. This is his last chance to put up some big numbers for the MVP case. And I don't think the Jets have the recipe that the Patriots have where they pounded the ball. The Jets have been a pass-first, pass-heavy attack. I agree with RJ. Aaron Rodgers playing hurt. That's a few turnovers right there.
Mike, anything for you?
It would be a teaser leg, especially at 8.5. As far as where I would pair it, the options that I'm really looking at right now, it's Indianapolis minus 7.5 at the Giants is probably the first leg here for me. And then the other one that I was really considering still is Tampa. I don't love it at 8.5. I think that Carolina's been pretty frisky there in division, but if you can find a partner that you like with it, there's several others, whether it be Minnesota, depending on where you're shopping. Minnesota's catching 1.5 at home in a few spots right now. So you could bring that to 7.5. But at 8.5, it would be a Bills teaser leg for me.
All right. The worst game of the week. It's not on CBS, so I can say that. And honestly, maybe the worst game of the year. Like, this is the game that we'll be talking, like, would you be willing to, you'd be dying to watch this in, March. And it is Raiders at Saints. The Raiders are -1. Aiden O'Connell is laying points on the road in 2024, the year of our Lord. And he's doing it because the Saints have absolutely no one. Marcus Valdes-Scantling is their top receiver. Keandre Miller is their top running back. Their offensive line is decimated. That ain't stopping RJ White, though, from backing a home dog with Spencer Rattler. Maybe Derek Carr? I think it's Spencer Rattler this week, right?
Maybe. They're talking like Derek Carr could return for this game, and who he wants to face. If he's going to face anybody this year, it's the Raiders, right? That's
True.
Clear will, a Brinson revenge spot there. Also, it might have Chris Olave back. He was full practice on Wednesday, and trying to come back from the IR. If you get those two guys back, this is a much better team than the Raiders. I think the Saints defense is the best unit in this game anyway, considering the Raiders don't have Max Crosby either. If you get the opportunity to bet against Aiden O'Connell on the road and catch points, I'd do that with anyone except maybe the Giants. So I think getting the point with the Saints here is great, especially if there is a shot we get Carr back, there is a shot we get Olave back. Either of those happen, the line's flipping pretty quickly. So I think it's a good value here at +1.
Where do you think it would go if they're back? Saints -3?
If Carr got to be over
2.5, yeah. Okay. Anything for Mike or Larry on this game? If not, feel free to pass.
I mean, if you want to lay some juice, you rarely get an NFL total in the first quarter in a dome at 6.5, but you can find a 6.5 in the first quarter. There are worse things. The lowest I found is -140 on the price point there, but something I'm monitoring. And that 37.5 would become 39.5 or 40 pretty quickly if Carr was playing. So I don't hate leaning over in those spots. Just again, ideal conditions, right? But no, I'm not playing or watching this game.
If Carr is out, I would play the Raiders. I think with Aiden O'Connell, they have been respectable. I mean, look what happened in Kansas City. They had a murderer's row scheduled during that long losing streak, but they were competitive against some good teams. And I think Darren Rizzi, he should be coach of the year for winning 3 of his first 4 games with that roster. That is unbelievable. What a job he did. But I think the Raiders do have a significant edge, again, if Carr is out.
All right, so keep an eye on Derek Carr, and if you see the practice reports, we're recording this on Thursday, so you'll see the practice reports later in the day, and then on Friday, that line will move. So if you like the Saints at all, and you might be getting Olave and Derek Carr back, go ahead and get in on the Saints. Now, Colts at the Giants. The Indianapolis Colts remain in playoff contention. Oh, no, wait. They're right? They're in playoff contention. Sorry, my brain's frazzled today. That's the eggnog. The Giants are terrible. And the over-under here, Larry, 40.5, but you like a side.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts can be eliminated if both the Broncos and the Chargers win on Saturday, but the Broncos are a dog of a field goal, so potentially they will still be alive going into this game. Either way, I mean, the Giants are the worst team in the NFL right now, and it's not really close. And Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy are on the injury report. Are they going to suit up? Drew Lock, he's turning into Jameis Winston a little bit with the pick sixes. And the Colts, to me, they can name their score. I mean, it was 7-0 Giants, and then it was 34-7 Falcons last week. That was incredible. So I will play against the Giants. I think the Colts, even if they're eliminated, are still going to put out a respectable effort.
Mike, anything for you here?
Yeah, it's that teaser for me. Once you get Buffalo at 8.5, I would pair it with the Colts here. Go 2.5 on the Bills, -1.5 for Colts. The thing that I would worry about a little bit in this game is just potentially weather. It's not going to be snow. It's actually quite warm in this game, around 50, 55. But we could have a lot of rain and 15 to 20 mile per hour winds, something to keep in mind. I think the current situation actually that helps the Colts more than anything with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. But yeah, teaser leg. Again, it wasn't on my radar initially because I had Bills 9.5, but now that we're starting to see 8.5s across the board, I most likely will end up with a Colts Bills teaser 8.5, 7.5.
I couldn't tease the Colts with Anthony Richardson down, especially on the road. I mean, that guy, 30% chance in any game of being the worst quarterback to ever play football when he goes out there. Like, it's just, I mean, he's always in play for like a 4 for 14 type of game. And you're like, how did this team ever win a game? So even against the Giants, I just can't lay this many points with Indy on the road. Can't back the Giants in any situation at this point. Couldn't tease the Colts because I could see them losing this game 13-10 or something like that if Richardson comes out and plays bad. I think if anything, it's best to back the under with Indy outdoors. Giants averaging about 12 points the last 5 weeks. So if I'm playing this game, I'm going to keep an eye on the weather and I'm going to look to the under.
All right, a much more enticing game. The Cowboys playing some decent football. Headed to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, where Philly is a 6.5 point favorite with a total here of 39.5. Obviously, Jalen Hurts, a big factor here. I didn't see anything as of Thursday. Like, is he? Do we have news? Anybody know if we have updated news on Hurts? Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
I'm leaning towards him not playing. But we'll see. I believe that they elevated Ian Book to the practice squad.
That's right. Yes. Good call.
Generally an indication that it's probably 50-50 at least at best at this point. The other thing that's slightly concerning there is Pickett is also dealing with a rib injury that he suffered in that game. He'll be fine to play, but he is dealing with that. But yeah, I'm leaning towards Jalen Hurts actually missing this game.
All right. And despite that, you were on the over here.
Yeah. I'm still on the over here. Look, I think that Saquon Barkley is still phenomenal. Dallas has played well of late, particularly in the passing game. They would love nothing more than to spoil things for the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's just a low number here for a team that, again, I think Pickett can still come in and execute this offense. So I thought the numbers should still be 42.5, 43. So I went over 39.5 here.
Yeah, and one thing to note too, they get the Cowboys this week. If they lose this game with no Jalen Hurts, obviously it brings into play Washington, in the division factors. They haven't clinched, but they get the Giants in week 18. So it's like you can kind of take it easy with Jalen Hurts here, Larry, if you wanted to take that path.
Yeah, but I think not having the number one seed, I think you want to wrap it up here so that you clinch the division and you don't have to play all the guys in week 18. But I agree with Mike. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to play. The Cowboys have been very feisty the last several weeks. Even that one loss they had was a fluke with the punt or the blocked punt muff that caused them to lose to the Bengals. So, I would lean towards the Cowboys against Pickett.
Yeah, I saw earlier today, Sirianni, I believe, just said he was still in the protocol. That's the only update that he was able to give. And I don't think he plays. I think the market was way behind the fact that he might not play early in the week. We took Cowboys plus 9.5. It just seemed like I think there's a less of a 50% chance of he plays. So why is this number still this high? And it seems like today's the day that's caught up with the market dropping to 7 and 6.5 in some places. It's obviously not a choice of do you push him to play here? Do you go out? It's the concussion protocol. You're either cleared or you're not. And if he's cleared, he's playing. If he's not, he's not playing. So it's completely going to be made up to that designation. And it's a 5-step process you have to go through. And if by this point you're still not out of the protocol, it gets really hard. You better show some progress on Friday. Otherwise, I think you can rule them out at that point. So I still like the Cowboys. If you can find a 7 at 6.5, I think that's probably the right number for Pickett. Even dealing with the rib injury, Dallas isn't quitting on this season. They can go out and win this game in an upset. They could finish with a winning record if they win their last 2 games, despite Dak playing less than half the season, only 8 games. That would be a great accomplishment. And considering how McCarthy's season was trending before that, if you close that way with a couple wins, then finish at 9-8, I think that says a lot about him.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like at this point that you saw the hug between him and Jerry Jones. He very well may be locked in for next year already. Panthers are at the Buccaneers on Sunday. The Bucs are -8 in this one. This line is a little stinky to me because the Panthers have been so frisky. I feel like everybody's going to want to take the Panthers. The issue is Carolina's defense still can't stop anybody. I mean, James Conner was running wild against them, and you're going to have a lot of Bucky Irving, a lot of Rachaad White. I'm sure they'll be popular in DFS. I'm going to lean, and I need to double check and make sure that the Tampa weather isn't disastrous for Sunday. There will be, the 20% chance of rain and some wind throughout the day, but it doesn't look like anything too crazy. I like the over here. Carolina's offense is functional. And Bryce Young leads. He's like top 5 in the NFL in PFF's big throw metric. He was their number 1 rated passer last week against Arizona, and the Bucs are a pretty good pass funnel. So I think Bryce Young can have a really nice game here, throwing against a defense that'll give up some passing yards, while the Panthers just completely give way to the rushing attack for Tampa Bay. I think Tampa could punch one in late and cover the 8. So I'm a little worried there. I will take the over. Larry, anything for you?
No, just slightly into Carolina. I mean, the first game they outplayed them, should have won the game probably. I'm going to lean towards Carolina. Bucs win, but don't cover.
Mike?
I wanted to tease the Bucs. I don't trust it enough. I'm not going to. It's kind of that same situation as the Colts. It doesn't feel great. I know that's a home game for them. I know it's a must win. The only thing I can get to, and I'm waiting on, I'm very anxious to see Bucky Irving props, just combo line, rushing and receiving, and would look to ladder that up. I think there's a scenario in this game with the stakes that are involved where he's talking 150 to 170 on the ladder, like on rushing plus receiving. I think he has.
To get my DFS pad out for this one. You were, you called it. James Conner was right last week, and then he just got injured. It didn't work out. RJ, any thoughts for you?
Yeah, I wanted to like the Panthers, but this is a come down spot for them off an overtime win. And this is a situation where they're playing a really good Tampa Bay run defense. And we know that's kind of where Carolina wants to establish things, is with the run, make things easier for Bryce Young. I don't think they're going to be able to do that in this game. Tampa lost in a tough spot last week against Dallas, but they outgained them by 93 yards. And it was their 4th road game in 5 weeks, and they were done in by 3 50-plus yard field goals, which you always have to worry about with the Dallas game. So I think I'm leaning toward Tampa here at the -8, but I don't trust it enough to even throw them in a teaser like Mike is talking about. So I don't know how much I trust them at -8. So I feel like this game's just going to be a stay away.
Hey guys, I wanted to jump in on this, and like the Cardinals-Rams game, when you have a team that needs it versus a team that is eliminated, we have seen this over the past several years. I know there's been a lot of talk about this. It's too much. The spread it's accounting for it too much, and the numbers are high, and those teams are not covering. It's just a general trend over the past several years where the team that needs it is covering like 40 or 45%.
I'll follow up real quick too, though. Like the Panthers team that we've seen 6 weeks ago. I mean, the way that they were getting bet, this line would be 14. Like they were just treated with so little respect. So we say, they're playing well. This line isn't low enough, and I think that they actually have taken several points off of where the line would have been if you're talking about the Panthers from before this recent stretch.
Just worth noting real quick to circle back to the Cowboys Eagles game. Jalen Hurts not seen at practice on Thursday, so looking more and more like he won't be a go for that game. I will be a go for this game. Titans and Jaguars. That's right. My mom's whole family lives in Jacksonville, Florida. We're going down there. We scheduled this game before the season. Oopsie. Because this game is featuring Mason Rudolph against Mac Jones, which is not what we were promised. And I think it combined like 5 wins or 6 wins on the season. Nevertheless, I am going to I'm actually glad to see. I think Mike is in line with me here. It's a principal play. Like these defenses stink. And I'm going to be there, and I want to see points. I want to see Brian Thomas Jr. house one. I want to see Tank Bigsby and hopefully Travis Etienne run wild against the Titans like Jonathan Taylor did last week. I really want to see Tony Pollard rack up the rushing yards against a Jacksonville defense that can't stop anybody. And to be perfectly honest, I know I keep talking about my best ball team. Somehow I have a team in the finals with Will Levis on it. Like, can we get – I don't want Mason Rudolph to get hurt, but, like, let's throw Levis in there and throw your boys some points here. 39.5 feels too low here. I'm going to gulp and take the over. Mike, makes me feel much better that you're on it as well.
Yeah, this is a classic ugly over candidate for me. I think the number should be 41 and a half, right? We know 41, just an insanely key number in the NFL in games like this. And you mentioned the big plays. It's Brian Thomas on one side, it's Calvin Ridley on the other, and those running backs. I just think that there's a decent scenario here that the defenses are bad enough. I know that we've got an upgrade in Mason Rudolph, but I still think we could have turnovers that create some short fields here. I like the over. Again, I kind of stunned this game is not 41. So I'm going over on it, and I'm having a Mason Rudolph double in DFS. It's going to be Mason Rudolph, Calvin Ridley, Chig Okonkwo. If you like player props, it's highly speculative, but Chig's had 21 targets the last 2 games with Mason Rudolph there. It's just 3,600 in DFS, makes everything work insanely well. So you talk about the game and not necessarily being a great one. I think it's a fantastic game for DFS, and I think you get some points here.
Hey, look, I got to have something to cheer for when I'm sitting in the stands like in Jacksonville. Larry, anything for you on this game? You got a Jaguar behind you.
No, I'm just going to look at the Chig Okonkwo props. The thing that worked in our favor last week, anyone who was on Chig, was the game script. We may not have the same, huge trailing game script, but yeah, Rudolph loves him.
All right, RJ?
All the things you guys said about the bad defenses and everything applied to the last time these guys faced a few weeks ago, and there almost wasn't a touchdown scored in that game. It was one of the ugliest games of the year, and all things considered. When you started talking about Raiders Saints as the worst game of the year, I thought you were going to say part 2 at this one. How are we subjected to 120 minutes of these teams playing each other?
I'm going to be there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know even Larry had the good sense when he was thinking about going to the Giants game of ducking out, and you're somehow not ducking out of this one. Tennessee probably has a better quarterback now than that first matchup with Rudolph, so I take the point with them, but otherwise I want nothing to do with this game.
Real quick note, and I realize we talked about the Saturday games earlier in the show, but Gus Edwards was just ruled out for the Chargers against the Patriots. J.K. Dobbins, Will Dissly, and Hayden Hurst questionable. So, little light there for the Chargers, missing their best running back. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, Packers-Vikings is an absolute smash game. Falcons-Commanders, plenty of juice as well. We will tell you our best bets for those games next.
The Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl is on CBS. Louisville and Washington face off for the first time ever. Tuesday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, back here on Week 17, the Early Edge NFL Pick Show. We got the 4 p.m. games to get to. We will start with the Dolphins at the Browns. Dolphins are laying 6.5 here with the Browns, swapping quarterbacks and being all over the place, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson not looking particularly exciting. RJ, you're going to just fade this Browns offense, which is careened off a cliff at this point.
Yeah, Larry took a shot at me last week with DTR and said that we know he's not high variance. We know what he is. He is terrible. And my point was like, yeah, he's probably terrible, but what if he's just bad? Then maybe they're competitive in this game. No, it turns out he's pretty terrible. And I was trying not to read too much into a relatively small sample size with him, but seeing that offense, he hasn't gotten any better. I think they're just dead with him at quarterback. So I'm taking Cleveland under 16.5 points on their team total. I might take it at under 6.5. I don't know how they score any points with him at quarterback. The offense is only praying he can get 60-yard runs from Jerome Ford to score points at this point. They don't have a good kicker either, who seems to miss everything. This game might be bad weather as well, so can't count on the kicker making any points either. And Miami's defense has allowed 100 yards rushing once in the last 9 games, so I don't even know if you can count on the run game here. So this is just going to be an ugly game for Cleveland. I don't know where the points come from unless they're defensive points. So I like Cleveland team total under 16.5.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule out Chop Robinson, and I say this to someone with Chop Robinson futures. Maybe like making a splash play or two here where he gets really in the mix for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's a worthy candidate. He's still like in the teens maybe in terms of his odds. But it's tough when you're not a high profile team like the Eagles or the Rams maybe in the playoffs to get that attention. But I mean like strip sack to the house here and Chop could get involved. Anything for you, Mike, in this game?
Nothing for me here. If you want to make a play I like RJ's lean. I would lean with RJ, I should say, on the team total under in the first half as well. It's 7.5, just essentially betting. Do they score a touchdown or not? Right. Because the kicking game's shaky. They're very unlikely to get into field goal range and successfully attempt and make 3 field goals in the first half. And they've had, again, questionable kicking. There's definitely a scenario where they score a touchdown and miss the extra point. Just all sorts of scenarios that work in our favor here. So if I had to play something, it would be Browns first half under 7.5.
Yeah, Larry, and 75% chance of rain too. So real slop fest here.
Yeah, I would lean Miami. I'm not playing it, but I was trying to fade Miami last week against San Francisco, and the one thing I underestimated was the impact of having your starting tackles back for Miami because they looked totally different in terms of the run game. So yeah, it's Miami or nothing.
All right, let's move on to a very big game. The Packers, who were just, Josh Jacobs could have run for 300 yards on Monday night if they weren't just like, all right, we don't need this guy too. And so they just eased back and played Brooks and Wilson. Packers offense has looked awesome. They are headed to Minnesota to play the Vikings where they are favored, a 1-point road favorite here for Green Bay with a total of 48.5. You, RJ, Mr. Sam MVP Darnold, are backing the home dog.
Yeah, why are they favored? The Vikings aren't a bad team. They're 13-2. They're beating almost everyone they play. I know their schedule isn't great, but they are doing what they need to do. And the look ahead was Minnesota -2. So that tells me that either Minnesota is much worse than the market thought, which they lived up to expectations. They were favored by 3. They won by 3. Or Packers are much better than people thought. And I don't think you get much credit for running the score up on the Saints, the Saints backups, that with all the guys missing on New Orleans that we've talked about. So I don't agree with this adjustment. I think the Vikings should be favored. I think you get them at that home field, a strong home field advantage for Minnesota. With the disrespect card at play, say, listen, why are we underdogs in this game? We're every bit as good as this team. They're going to go out and I think battle for that number 1 spot. Obviously need to win this. And then, figuring that Detroit's going to win on Monday night. So I think they go out there, they play hard, they win this game by a field goal or a point or 2 points. It's going to be a close game either way. And I want to be with a home team there that has played every bit as well as Green Bay this season. So give me Minnesota +1.
Anything for you, Mike?
It would be Minnesota side, particularly if you're catching 1.5 in a few spots. I think it's a strong teaser leg at that point. But I do as well lean on the Minnesota side. I think that they're the team that, even like, if you look at the two teams, and if one team were to fall behind by 10 points in this game, I like Minnesota's path to coming back just with the healthy passing game. When I look at the other side, like, yes, Josh Jacobs has been phenomenal. I'm not sure he's going to do that against this Minnesota team. And Christian Watson really banged up with that knee injury. I don't even know if he plays in this game. He's someone that you would want to have that deep threat if needed in those spots. So for me, I can only be on the Vikings side. As much as I would not want to play the Packers in the playoffs and really at any point here, I will be with the home team, especially at 7 or 7.5 on a teaser.
All right, Larry.
Yeah, it's funny, RJ, because the perception is that the Packers are this surging team, and they are. 5 straight games without a pick for Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur, now 20-2 in December. But the Vikings have been just as good. So, yeah, the line doesn't make a ton of sense. I really need to dive in more before I can venture a play on this one.
Yeah, fair enough. I do like that teaser look with Minnesota at +7. They've just got, it's hard to see them just getting blown out at home in this massive divisional game. Sunday night football features the Falcons at the Commanders. Commanders -4 over under 47.5. I wrote about it on Sunday or Monday for CBSSports.com, but Michael Penix's stat line, not indicative of how well he played in that first game. He was really comfortable. Kyle Pitts is I don't even know what you're doing, man. He just pops the ball straight up for that interception. And then Bijan Robinson had 2 short runs. So, I think, Larry, it's not unreasonable to expect Atlanta to play well here, even against a good defensive coach in Dan Quinn on the road in primetime, because that Penix looked the part.
Yeah, and I jumped on the Falcons at 4.5. I'll still play them at 4. What he did was he opened up the entire field, which had not been happening for Atlanta. I mean, defenses had to guard the entire field. Now, the Giants, it's hard to even tell because, they're so bad. But this is not a great spot for Washington, even though, of course, they need the game. I mean, that's a very draining, very, important, emotional, divisional win over a rival. You kind of break through. It felt like they almost won a Super Bowl the way people reacted to that win. And now you got to come back and play this rookie who I think, they could be down 10 late and he could drive them down and cover this. So, to me, it's too many points.
All right, Mike?
Nothing yet. I'm watching the total on this game here. I'm looking at the Atlanta side. It's currently 22.5. I might play an alternate number at 23.5 and go under their team total. I think there's a number of scenarios where they can be competitive and cover a spread while scoring 23 and not above. So, and I think there's also the scenario that you get the rookie Penix outdoors in the limelight. Like it's a scenario where it's just a total flop, right? So I'm at 22.5, still lean there pretty comfortably. I have their number at 21. But this to me projects where I would pay up to -135 on a 23.5 and go under an alt line team total on the Falcons side.
Yeah, I would lean to Washington here. I mean, Atlanta took care of business against the dead Giants team. I was on that under Atlanta team total last week and didn't get there, but they had 2 defensive touchdowns, which of course, come on, Giants, have a little respect for the game of football and not give up multiple defensive touchdowns in a game. This is a much different spot for Penix on the road versus what's probably a playoff team, at least a playoff caliber team. And Washington's 4th in points per game on the season. Atlanta's defense has struggled against good offenses. And so I think Washington can go out, score some points here. I'm not sure if Penix at this point can keep up. That's still kind of a question mark. So I think there's an opportunity where if you're going to play Washington, you play an alt line, because if it is a disaster spot for Penix, you might get off with like a -10.5, looking really good for you on the Washington side. So if I'm playing this game, it's probably going to be toward the Washington side, and then with a little sprinkle on an alt line there.
All right, let's get to the final game of the week. Final game of the penultimate week of the 2024 NFL season. It's crazy how fast this season has gone. Lions at the 49ers. Lions are a 3.5 point favorite with a robust total of 50.5. I personally, I know we'll talk about the Lions. I like the Lions here, lean to the Lions, but I like the over too. Detroit's defense played really well against the Bears, but the Bears don't like to show up until the second half. anyway. I think San Francisco, who just put Trent Williams on IR, that's a big blow, of course. But I think San Francisco will want to show a little bit of life here to close, as they start to close out the season, make some momentum for next year. Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, all there for Brock Purdy. I think San Francisco can score enough to keep it competitive and get us over this large total, barring some kind of weather that pops back up in San Francisco. I know, Larry, you are on the Lions.
Yeah, and I tried to back the 49ers last week. I mean, they can't make a field goal. Brock Purdy can't hit George Kittle from 4 yards away, wide open in the end zone. So I'm not so sure that they put it all together here, even though the Lions defense is tremendously banged up, even though they gave up 6.5 yards per play to the Chicago Bears. But this is the ultimate motivational spot for the Lions after what happened in the NFC Championship game. And Dan Campbell won't even have to mention it to this team, and just the way they took care of business against the Bears when everybody was thinking, oh, the defensive injuries are too much, and they just come out right away, score. I think they're going to win this game by 7, maybe 10.
RJ, you agree with Larry on the Lions, right?
Yeah, I disagree with you that San Francisco wants to come out here and going to show something, build for next year. This has been a long couple of years for them. They're playing up to the Super Bowl. They're playing up to the NFC Championship game. I think they're kind of spent. This has been a season where everything's gone wrong for them. Everybody's getting hurt. And I could see this team checking out for this game now that they're eliminated from the playoffs. And they're up against one of the best teams in the league. And it's not just the Trent Williams going down. His backup is hurt. I think his backup's backup is hurt. The Aaron Banks at left guard is hurt. I mean, they might be down to UFL caliber players on the left side of their line at this point. And that mitigates the issues we would have with Detroit's defense, with the defensive line injuries they've been suffering. You're not going to be able to take advantage of that if that's your offensive line you're going out there. When you look at these Detroit games, you basically just pencil in 24 and then let's see how much more that they can score than that. They're just that good. And with these offensive injuries for San Francisco, I'm not sure they can get to 20. And so I don't know why this line is -3.5. I'd make it 6.5. I think they're going to go out and roll on the 49ers in a flat spot for San Francisco. So I even played an alt of -13.5, I believe. Maybe I played -16.5 at +500. I think this could be a blowout. So I love the Lions here. One of my best bets of the season if I'm going to rank them, all the way through the season. I just love this spot for the Lions.
I think too, and I'm just doing the quick math in my head, but if Philadelphia with no Jalen Hurts loses the Cowboys, which is not like that out of control, and Green Bay beats Minnesota, I'm pretty sure Detroit would be able to go clinch the number 1 seed on Monday night in San Francisco, because they would, you would have the Eagles at 12-4, Vikings at 13-3, Green Bay at 12-4, and then they could get to 14. So, if that unfolds throughout the week, then you might really be in a spot where Detroit is going to come out and put it on them on offense and pull out all the tricks, the fake fumbles, everything, right? Mike, any thoughts on this game for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to be the scenario here. They don't even need the Philly result is actually irrelevant, I think, this week at this point. It really just comes down to a Detroit win and a Minnesota loss. Would lock everything up for them. So they obviously get the benefit of watching that Packers game first. But either way, the result is the same. If Minnesota wins that game, they still need to win this game, and they still want to win this game. So I'm going to look at their first half team total. I'm with the guys. I lean Lions 3.5 here. I think it should be a solid 4 minimum, right? So when I look at this, though, you see, we talked about team totals with Bengals earlier a little bit. The team total in the Lions is that full 27.5, not 26.5, but the first half number doesn't move, right? It's 13.5. You get there with 2 touchdowns. To me, when you look at the way this team starts football games, I think they scored 2 touchdowns in the first half. It's just the way that they play. I'm going to play the team total first half over 13.5. I think they come out extremely motivated, particularly if Minnesota happens to lose that game at home. I think they try to wrap it all up. So Detroit or nothing here for me. Like RJ, I think that in years past, the 49ers may not have checked out, but it's almost like the end of an era there a little bit. So I'm very worried about them where they're at motivationally.
All right. Lions across the board then. That'll do it for us. That is everything from week 17. One more week left. And man, betting on week 18, I mean, there's some great edges, but there's some wild cards in play. Of course, we will have all those best bets for you next week on this show. For Mike, for Larry, for RJ, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Great job, fellas. We'll see you guys later.